All right, guys, small interruption. I'm watching this video. What I'm giving you is insanely beneficial for you guys. This is something that took me years and years to be able to learn, and I'm giving it to you guys for free. I want you to understand how valuable it is, but it's missing something, and that is guidance on how to program. So what I've decided to do is create a program where one lucky winner gets to win 3 months worth of online customized coaching by me. So I'm gonna build your bench press as well as everything else, bench press, your whole body, whatever your goals are, as long as bench press is included. So all you need to do is go to the description, click on the link, and I'm gonna send you all of the details of how to enter. You get to win 3 months of coaching with me for the bench press, but everything else is gonna be a complete program. This normally costs $2,000 and it's yours for absolutely free. Click the link and I'm gonna give you all the details, and I'm gonna see you guys soon. Enjoy the rest of the video. Trust me, I'm asking you for nothing in return. This video teaches you how to bench. Okay, now, right now you're behind the scenes of a new tutorial that I'm making. You know, I'm a content creator and I'm an educator, and I've given so many tutorials on a bench press, but a lot of the times there's new details that I deliver to you guys based on the questions that I receive. The technique has pretty much remained the same since I really started powerlifting, a little bit more than 10 years. I learned this bench press technique from Kirill Sarychev. He was once upon a time the best bencher in the world with a 335 kilogram bench press, which was the all-time world record. Since then, he's been beaten. Julius Maddox is the world record holder. However, when we consider technique, I prefer to use Kirill's technique. I think that it's superior, even though it's like, well, how does Julius get a better press? I think Julius Maddox has just got more raw strength. It's as simple as that, you know, and you look at the body weight. Julius Maddox weighed over 440 pounds. Some people say even closer to 500 pounds. I don't know the exact weight, which is, you know, 200 kilograms, anywhere between 200 to 220 kilograms. When he set his world record, which I believe is around 355 kilograms, somewhere around there, over 750 pounds. Not quite 800, that's the goal that everyone wants, but of course, that's the unicorn that we're chasing. When I say we, not me at all, these guys. But Kirill Sarychev was 170, low 170s, I think 172 kilograms when he achieved that. So I don't want to take anything away from Julius Maddox and do the pound for pound game, but you definitely can consider it. Kirill Sarychev was a lot lighter, and I'm sure that if Kirill had more body weight on him, he'd be stronger as well. Either way, if I look at Julius Maddox's technique, he's got a closer grip, he doesn't arch as much, which I'm going to explain a little bit in this video. But Kirill Sarychev has a wider grip. He uses the same technique that I'm teaching, which is index finger on the outer ring of a powerlifting bar, which is the maximum legal width in a powerlifting competition. The leg drive that he uses is the same, which is back on the balls of the feet and pushing the heels downwards in aid of creating hip joint extension, which initiates the arch to hold the body in the right position from start to finish. So I learned that from Kirill Sarychev, but the details that I provide change, not because the technique's changed. It hasn't changed. I use Kirill's technique, and I always have. I've learned it from him. I've done work with him many years ago. He came to Iceland and he did a seminar with Boris Chico, and we spoke to him. You know, I was in a hot seat because I was hanging with Hafthor Bjornsson, and Kirill was there to do a WRPF. He's the president of WRPF powerlifting competition, and that's the federation that Thor Bjornsson competed in when he did a powerlifting competition. He totaled 1,100 kilograms. So we were hanging out with Kirill. So I had a lot of in-depth discussion with Kirill. This is his technique. It's not mine. I didn't make it up. I just use it because I believe it's the best technique for many reasons, which I'm going to go into great detail. Now, someone asked me on one of my last videos, they basically said in the comments section, I know that your audience is strongmen and powerlifters at the elite level, but can you please make a video explaining how this relates to everyday people? Somewhere along those lines. Now, I want you to understand, this does relate to everyday people. Everything that I do is for everyday people. The reason why you see me using people like Thor Bjornsson, or even myself, I'm not the best in the world, but I'm pretty strong. I'm an elite level powerlifter, and this is me, 44 years old, for a tutorial, benching 160 kilograms for 3 sets of 5 comfortably at 100 kilograms body weight. The reason why I'm doing this and maintaining my strength is because as a business owner and authority in the space, you could say, I believe you need to be the walking billboard for the product that you sell. So when I teach a technique, I like to practice what I preach and show this is what I'm using. I didn't just learn about this. I didn't read about it from a textbook. I've learnt the ins and outs of these techniques and applied it not only on myself, but I've applied it at the highest level to coach some of the best athletes on the planet, including who I consider to be the strongest man on the planet. So the techniques work. That's why I use examples of very, very strong people to demonstrate that, so that I can convince all of you, that it's the right technique. That's one of the biggest problems with trying to figure out what technique we should be using when we train is there's so many different authorities in the space, there's so many different technicians, and there's so many conflicting ideas. There's a lot of coaches that say that person's wrong and that technique's bad and my technique is better. So instead of telling you that anything else is good or bad or whatever, I'm teaching you by showing you. I show you and I lead by example, as well as using the athletes that I work with to demonstrate to you that the techniques work. Okay, so that's why quite often, there's a saying, don't take advice from people who haven't been down the same path that you want to go down. Okay, I know that a lot of people might be upset with that, but anyway, it's something that I believe in. So I want to practice what I preach. That's why I use high-level athletes to demonstrate that the techniques that I'm teaching you, they work, trust me, use them, it's going to make you better. I wish that I had someone convincing me back then when I was trying to figure out, and I was learning from all the different methods and trying to figure out what's the best way, and I was always chopping and changing between techniques. And that's not the best way to learn. The best way to learn is to figure out the technique that makes the most sense, that's most comfortable for you, and stick to it for a decade and more. I say the word decade, implying long period of time. Because if you're changing, which is what I did in my early years, if you're chopping and changing between different techniques, you're not giving anything a good enough opportunity to actually get good at it. So this technique is good, trust me. Now what I'm doing with this tutorial is I'm going to go into great depths. I'm going to talk about the feet, the hands, the shoulders, and I'm also going to talk about how it applies to you even if you're not a power lifter. I'm an educator and I host seminars where I teach lifting technique. Now, here's the thing. My main seminar, I basically teach 3 lifts, squat, bench press, deadlift, not because I think everyone should learn those movements, but because in one day, how many techniques can you possibly teach? There's thousands of different amazing exercises. So when I say squat, bench, deadlift is what I'm going to teach you, it doesn't mean I'm shitting on other exercises and saying that anything else is bad. I'm choosing exercises that I believe have the best carryover to learning how to do everything else. So I talk about the bench press with the arch that I'm teaching you guys right now as a push pattern, a horizontal push pattern. But if you understand how to master the techniques that I'm teaching you here, you're going to understand how to do a push pattern with a flat dumbbell press, an incline, an overhead, close grip, pronated grip, neutral grip, supinated, whatever grip you want, whatever angle you want. The pressing position and the way that the shoulder mechanics work in line with spine position are all linked, not only with the push pattern, but also with the pull pattern. So to demonstrate the importance of this arch back bench press technique, I'm going to be using vertical pull and horizontal pull patterns like a lat pull down and a seated cable row so that you can understand how the body is designed and how the body should be moving when we're performing natural human movements, our push and pull patterns. Small disclaimer, a bench press isn't a natural human movement. It's not how we're designed to push. Why? What do you mean it's not how we're designed to push? We are not designed to lay down on a bench which restricts our shoulder blades from being able to move freely when we do our human functions. What are those human functions? A punch, a push, a throw. That's that horizontal push plane. That's that action. So that's human movement. A bench press, you're laying down on a bench with a very, very heavy barbell, which is man-made, in your hands, laying on a bench, and the natural thing to happen when my arm goes forward and back is my shoulder blade should protract when I come forward and retract when I come back. But that's not completely possible when you're laying on the bench, which is why you need to understand bench press isn't human movement. Okay, so it's a technique. And this is where things get a little bit confusing. You've got a lot of functional trainers that talk about only do functional movements and whatever. I'll tell you now, powerlifting is a sport. People want to do a bench press. It's cool, it's fun, and it's good for you when you do it correctly, especially. It encourages exercises, it encourages strength, it encourages muscle building, and that's that. So it's just like saying, tennis is not a natural human movement. It's not. You're holding a tennis racket, that's man-made. Golf is not a natural human movement. It's holding a man-made object. And when we play these sports, which we love doing, humans love competition, we need to factor in the man-made components. So not everything needs to be functional as you think. So either way, I am going to show you non-functional, which is a bench press. I'm going to explain functional human movement so that I can illustrate to you the do's and don'ts of a bench press. So let's just start with the bench press, shall we? So I'm just going to let's just go step by step with all of the techniques that I'm doing. Yeah, cool. So this is what we're going to do. We're showing you behind the scenes. So this is probably going to be 30 or 40 minute video on YouTube, and we're going to show you the final product, which is probably going to be a 30 or 40 second video on Instagram. I do everything for Instagram, bro. That's where I live. You know me. You know me. That's how I do everything is, I try and condense it, which comes with a whole list of problems when you condense everything. And this is what I'm talking about. People, I'll give the most in-depth tutorial and condense it into 60 seconds. And then people say, but what if this and what if that? And there's so much detail that you just can't explain in a short period of time. So therefore, that's why I've decided to have Mr. Cameraman, Mustafa, recording behind the scenes so that I can explain the tight shots, the zoom ins. So I've just done the main work. So that's 3 sets of 5 of 160 kilograms. That's called the social proof. So this is the strategy of social media. That's the social proof. I don't need any of these. Yes, so these are very soft, flimsy elbow sleeves. They're not allowed in competition, but I love to use these in training. It just makes me warm and comfortable. The belt is allowed in competition. It's a tool that I like to use for many reasons, but one of the big reasons is it increases the rigidity of my torso. So when I hold my breath from start to finish, which is what I do, it allows no leakages from my leg drive to the power output from my arms. So when I'm pushing down on my legs and pushing with my hands, if I'm breathing and not bracing correctly, the leg drive force is being lost and not getting transferred into my arm drive. So holding my breath and increasing the tension in my core with the breath hold and the help of my belt is going to allow a lot more force production from my leg drive to carry over to the amount of weight that I'm pushing with my arms. So let's check it out bit by bit. That's the first step. So it's a funny one because it's got nothing to do with the press itself, but a lot of the times when I'm teaching newbies how to do a bench press, they just sit down and they're getting excited and then they whack their head on the barbell. Don't do that. So therefore the first step is sit at the edge of the bench so that when you lay down, you are not going to bump your head on the bar. Okay, sitting at the edge of the bench. Now, what I want to do is set myself up so I've got the maximal arch all the way back here. So I don't just kind of lay down here and then try and get in position. Okay, so right now where my feet are, I'm not maximizing my tension. What I like to do is slide back before I set my feet up. So I don't know if you're able to see or measure the spot that my feet were at before I slid back here, but it wouldn't have been as far back. When I slide back and get my head off the bench, I'm able to bring my feet even further back. What I want to do is maximize tension through my entire body. So the first thing I do is I slide back so my head is, see, it's off. So I just slide a little bit, slide all the way back so your head is off the bench. I do this so that I can bring my feet back up on the balls of my feet, and then I push my heels downwards towards the ground. Notice they're not touching the ground. I'm not telling you to touch the ground. And yes, I know a lot of you in the comment section are going to say, but in my federation, you have to have flat feet. Yes, I know. We're going to get to that. Right now, this isn't necessarily about powerlifting competition, even though it kind of is, because in my federation and Kirill's federation, which is the person that I learned it off, you are allowed to have this technique. Correct? I know that some federations don't allow it, which I will get to. But either way. Now, a lot of people ask the question, how far back should we go? Here's the thing. Let's just say we go all the way back and we go a little bit too far. What happens here is I push my heels down and I can feel I can't go further because I'm getting blocked. So then I can adjust my feet until I get into the perfect spot. So here, this is the perfect spot. So how do I know I'm in the perfect spot? There's 2 landmarks. One, sole of my foot, when I'm pushing down as hard as I can, is 45 degrees or thereabouts. Okay, so that's what I want, is 45 degrees with the sole of the foot. The next landmark that I'm looking for is barbell in line with your chin or your mouth. Okay, so having the barbell in line with the chin on my mouth means that I don't have to reach back so far. So a lot of people teach in line with the eyes, which is a few inches down that way. And the further down there I am, the more I need to reach my arms back. The more I need to reach my arms back, the more I'm taking my shoulder blades into protraction to unrack that weight. I don't want to do that. I want to maintain retraction of my shoulder blades. So that was another point right here. Feet back, heels down, and I squeeze my shoulder blades back and down towards my back pockets, and I stick them into the bench here. So if you notice how I'm doing it, I'm using the grip of the bench. Some benches are slippery, that's a disadvantage. I'm using the grip of the bench to squeeze my shoulder blades and stick them onto the bench. Now,
from here, heels down, shoulder blades back and down. I've chosen my grip, mouth in line with the barbell. I take a big breath to brace, and all I'm focusing on is heels down and shoulder blades back and down. That's the main thing that I'm focusing on. From here, all I do after I unrack is press the heavy thing off the chest, okay? So you're gonna watch me. There's a few other details which I'll go in, but from here, heels down, shoulder blades back and down, big breath to brace. I did 10 reps to demonstrate that I held my breath from start to finish, okay? So that is not like a compulsory. Some of you need to breathe, and a lot of you are going to say, that's bad for you, whatever. It's like, look, my understanding of fainting, fact check me if you like. I'm not a doctor, so don't take my advice. But a lot of the times when people faint is because they need blood to the head. So what not to do when someone faints is hold them up and stop them from laying on the floor. That stops the blood from getting to their head, and they're going to stay fainted, passed out, or even have some type of a seizure. Lay them down flat so they get blood to their head. That's my understanding, not medical advice. When I'm laying down in a bench press, you don't faint. I've never seen it happen. I don't want to say it's impossible. All I'm saying is I've never seen it happen. I've seen people faint from standing, from squatting and holding their breath, from deadlifting and holding their breath, from overhead pressing and holding their breath, because you are vertical and the blood can escape your head. But when you're laying down horizontally, I've never seen it happen. I don't want to say it's completely safe to hold your breath like that, because if you have cardiovascular issues, it could be a concern. So that tip, do that at your own risk. I don't want to say it's going to kill you. I've never seen it happen. Doesn't mean it's impossible. But I'm not telling you, I'm not a doctor. Either way, all I'm talking about isn't health. All I'm talking about is the strongest position for your bench press, and I hold my breath from start to finish for that. Now, some people lose their breath and they need to breathe. If that's the case, fine, breathe. In a powerlifting competition, all you've got to do is 1 rep. So you should be able to hold your breath for that entire rep. That's the strongest way to do it. If you have cardiovascular issues, it's probably not the safest way, but let's assume you don't. Okay, now, that's pretty much like what I'm thinking about. Now, there's a few other things that are going on behind the scenes that I'm not really talking about, but are naturally happening. So a few questions you might have is, what about bar path? What about tucking your elbows? I haven't heard you mention that. Well, the reason I haven't mentioned it, but I'm going to, but the reason why I haven't mentioned it is because when you're in the correct position, which is arching your back, so that's called extension of the thoracic spine. Lumbar spine is your lower back, thoracic spine is your upper back. Every vertebra that's attached to a rib is a thoracic vertebra. So your thoracic spine, so kind of here, needs to be extended. That's the main part. And as a result, the lumbar spine or the lower back will also be extended or arched. So the objective is arch your upper back as hard as you can. So feet back, heels down, arch your upper back. Now, if you're in that position, if you've arched your back maximally, and you can do that at home, head back and tail back. Now from here, where are your shoulder blades? Where are your shoulder blades? Answer the question, I'll tell you where they are. They're back and down towards your back pockets. Did I ask you to put them there? No, I didn't. It's just something that naturally happens. When you extend your spine, the scapula will move in a corresponding way. So arching the upper back will cause the shoulder blades to retract. And the opposite is true. When I round or flex my upper back, the shoulder blades will protract. So this is an important thing to understand with human movement. When I arch my back, my shoulder blades will naturally want to come back and down here. The next thing that will naturally want to happen is when my shoulder blades retract, my humerus will also naturally externally rotate. Okay, so external rotation, retraction of scapula, extension of spine. Okay, so let's talk about that in English. Arch your upper back, which is extension of spine. Externally rotate your upper arm, which, look at the direction my elbows are pointing. When I do that, they're pointing down, and when I press, that causes my elbows to tuck. So I don't teach people to tuck their elbows unless I have to, but what I do teach them is to arch your back, and when you're arching your back, the elbows will tuck where they need to go, which is a natural position. And in my opinion, when I tell someone to tuck their elbows, they exaggerate it and they tuck it too much. You don't want to tuck them too much, just right. There is too little, there is too much. You want that Goldilocks zone. Just right. The next thing is the bar path. I don't need to teach you that. The bar, think about straight up and straight down. And what happens is, check this out. See where my elbows are? The barbell, so when I unrack, the bar's in line with my shoulder. Now, when you tuck the elbow, which naturally happens, and you lower the weight, the bar is now in line with the elbow, but it's not in line with the shoulder anymore. So we forget the shoulder. The bar must be in line with the elbow from start to finish. Okay? Now, if I'm tucking the elbow, which will naturally happen, that means the bar has gone from here and now it's curved down to where my sternum is and then back up again. So I don't know what you want to call that bar path, diagonal-ish. I don't know if you call that a J curve. I don't know what you call that, but it's not. So if I flare my elbows completely, it'll be a completely straight bar path, but I'm not flaring the elbows. I'm slightly tucking the elbows. So therefore, diagonal towards the sternum and then diagonal up towards the shoulder. So it's a slight curve or diagonal bar path, and I don't need to tell you to do that if you're moving correctly, okay? The last part of that, so I said, when you arch your back, that's paired with retraction and depression of the scapula, which is paired with external rotation of your upper arm. The next thing that ties that in is inhalation. Okay, so extension of the spine. So this is a difference in brace between a bench press and a deadlift and a squat. So when you squat and deadlift, we teach the cue ribs down. Not sure if you've heard that or not. If you haven't, I'll talk about that on another episode. But when you brace correctly with a spine loading exercise like a squat or a deadlift, that's how you brace. It's ribs down. When we arch in a bench press, the brace isn't ribs down. I'm arching maximally and it's flared ribs maximally. Okay, so when I flare my ribs, so when I inhale, that ties everything in. So inhalation ties in the flared ribs and the extension of the spine, which means exhalation is the opposite of that. Exhalation will cause my rib cage to depress. Depression of the rib cage is flexion of the spine, is protraction of the scapula, is out of position in a bench press, which is why I like to tie it in with a breath hold from start to finish. Let's talk about grip position. I didn't always hold the barbell in the right place. I was actually taught some wrong things, which is to grab the bar and squeeze it as tight as you can. Cues like white knuckling the barbell to allow you to engage your whole body and to lift as strong as possible. It's called the process of irradiation, where you maximally contract one muscle and the neighboring muscles will also contract. Here's the thing, you don't want every single muscle to maximally contract. You only want the muscles that are responsible for shifting the loads to maximally contract, and the others don't need to be on to the same degree. So it's not about gripping the bar as tight as possible, it's about placing the barbell on the strongest part of your hand. What is the strongest part of your hand? It's where I'm resting right now. So this is where I'm placing all of the load through the heel of my hand, which is in line with these two bones in my forearm, which is the radius and the ulnar. Now here's the problem. That's the strongest grip. However, that grip is not allowed in powerlifting competition. This is called a false grip. It's also called something else starting with S, but for the algorithm, you're not allowed to say those words. Unaliving grip, we could call it for now. However, the reason why it's not allowed is because when I don't have my thumb wrapped around the barbell, it's a high risk of the barbell slipping out of my hands, which is why I'm not sure if it's all federations, but I know the main federations, that's not allowed. We have to wrap the thumb around the barbell in line with safety. So the strongest position to place a barbell on your hand is in line with the heel of your hand, which is in line with those two forearm bones. It's stacked on those joints. So if you can imagine, if I place the barbell higher up on my hand, it's now putting a lot of pressure on my wrist, which I don't want. Placing the barbell on the heel of your hand, the wrist will bend back, but it's totally fine. Some people teach to have a straight wrist position. Incorrect. The wrist won't be straight. You need, for some extension of the wrist, to be able to position the barbell in the palm of your hand in the strong part. Now, what is the strong part if it can't be exactly on the heel of the hand? Wrapping the thumb around, watch what happens to my hand. So that's the strong part, is on the heel of the hand. When I wrap the thumb around, I need to internally rotate my hand to be able to position my thumb there. Now, when I internally rotate my hand, I'm still aligning the ulnar, so this part of the heel of my hand, with the barbell. I've just unaligned it from the radius. So it's in the webbing of your hand and in line with the ulnar. Okay, now this isn't just the way that I do it. In fact, I've actually got a cool little video of Kirill Sarychev showing me the exact position that he holds the barbell when he bench presses 335 kilograms. And it just so happened to be that exact same position. Why don't you add the video in now so that you can see it's not just me, but I'm in good company as well.
Kirill, can you please just show us where you hold the barbell? That position. So the wrist is bent back just a little bit. Here.
Internally rotating the hands has actually been given a name, and that is the Bulldog Grip. So the Bulldog stands with his hands, or hers, internally, you've got to be inclusive these days, internally rotated. So that's where the similarities end. So the hands are internally rotated on a Bulldog. However, We're not bulldogs, we're powerlifters, and we need to still position our shoulders correctly. So we internally rotate the hands to allow us to wrap the thumb around the bar and expose the strong part of the palm of our hand to the barbell. But I also want my shoulder to be in the correct position, which is external rotation. So internally rotating my hand, externally rotating my shoulder, and then push the heavy thing off your chest. That's all, okay? So let's have a look at all of that put together, step by step. Step one, sit at the edge of the bench so that you don't bump your head on the bar when you lay down. Step two, slide back so your head is off the bench so that we can position our feet back. Get on the balls of the feet and push our heels down towards the ground. They're not going to touch the ground, but they're pushing down in that general direction from start to finish. This is called hip joint extension, which initiates the arch. From here, grab the barbell in your desired powerlifting grip. For me, it's index finger on the outer ring of the powerlifting bar, but that's the maximum legal width grip. Not for everyone, but if that's you, then you do it now. You hold the bar in your strong grip. From here, with the heels down, I slide in position until my chin or mouth or that area is in line with the barbell, and I squeeze my shoulder blades, I grip them in together, back and down towards my back pockets, while I'm pushing my heels down the whole time. From here, I take a big breath to brace. And then I go down and up and push the heavy thing off my chest. Okay, now I'm gonna do all of that and show you how I would modify that to do the flat foot version for IPF powerlifting competition. Just so that you know, I do pretty much the exact same thing, except the last moment I slide my feet forward. So, step by step, sit at the edge of the bench, slide back, feet back. I still get you to set up here because it positions your shoulder blades where I want them, okay? Mouth in line with barbell, squeeze the shoulder blades into position, but then from here, I slide my feet forward until they're flat on the ground. Now, the way that I drive my legs here is I push my legs like I'm lifting my butt in the air, but then I lower my butt gently until it's touching, and I maintain that pressure from start to finish. So that's the leg drive. Now, the advantage of a leg drive that I do compared to flat foot is when I drive my legs down into flat foot, my butt lifts in the air. When my feet are back and my heels are down, my pelvis rotates on axis. It doesn't lift the hips in the air. Okay, so bringing my feet back and heels down, my pelvis anteriorly rotates. When my feet are flat, I'm trying to arch as much as I can, but the leg drive forces my butt to lift in the air, which is why, in my opinion, that's one of the preferences with just gym lifts. If you were to choose a technique, flat foot or up on the balls of the feet, if you're not competing, that's one of the reasons why I prefer to teach up on the balls of the feet. Now remember, here's one error that I see with people on the balls of their feet is they look at that position and they think you should be pushing through your toes. No, don't push through your toes, push your heels down. Different mechanism, okay? So if you're just like maximally contracting your calves, it looks like you're doing the right things. Push the heels down. You want hip joint extension. So that's the objective because that initiates that arch. I want to talk to you about another detail, which is unracking, which is pretty important because if you don't get this right, it's going to ruin your setup and you're taking yourself out of position from the absolute beginning, and that's going to ruin the entire set. How can an unrack ruin your entire set? So it's a skill. So when I unrack, what you want to do is be able to, now, how can an unrack ruin your entire set? So it's a skill. So when I unrack, what you want to do is be able to unrack with the elbows, not the shoulders, because if I unrack with my shoulders, which is a natural movement, I'm going to take my shoulders out of position. So what I do is keep my shoulders back and down and only unrack with elbow joint extension, which is a skill and it's a very unnatural skill to learn. But there's two ways of doing that. One way is by yourself without an unracker, which is what I just did the entire session, which I don't like. I do it and I think it's important to know how to do because most people don't have a training partner every single time they train at the gym. It's a luxury to have a training partner, and if you want to stick this out for as long as you need to actually be good, you are going to come to the gym many times by yourself, which means learning how to unrack the barbell without a spotter
is a skill that I highly recommend you learn. However, it's also important and a nice luxury to have if you are lucky enough to have a great training partner and an unracker. I do have Musti, that's the videographer. He is very good at unracking, and he's only not doing it now so that we can have a very clear video. But I might get him to set up the camera so that we can show you some of the things that we're looking for, the difference between self-unrack and unracking with a training partner. Okay, so let's get set up and I'm gonna show you a self-unrack. Okay, so my self-unrack, what you wanna do, a lot of people teach the importance of tucking the elbows. However, it's very weak if you tuck the elbows from the unrack, especially if you don't have a spotter. So if you are training by yourself, you can't take that advice. You need to flare the elbows to unrack that weight. So watch what I do. So I'm in the right setup from here. Now what I do is flare the elbows so that I can get my elbow directly underneath that bar. From here, I'm still trying to maintain my shoulder blade position, which is back and down as best as possible. It interferes with that slightly, but we've got no choice. So flaring the elbows so that I can get the elbows under the bar and just focus on elbow extension to get the weight off the bar rather than protracting my shoulder blade. Okay, so keep my shoulder blades back, flare the elbows, lock the elbow out, and then externally rotate, and then press away. Okay, now I'm going to show you the difference between that and having an unracker. So now, when I have an unracker, I let him do all the hard part, and what I want to do is maintain the tuck. So now instead of flaring the elbows, I keep my elbows tucked, and my unracker, is going to gently unrack that weight, and I'm keeping my elbows in the right position from start to finish. And that is the optimal position as long as your unracker has a good understanding of unracking that weight. Now, I'm going to explain what your unracker needs to do. So, check these things out. This is a luxury that we have. This is called a competition bench press. And on a competition bench press, you have these competition stands, which is a great position for the unracker to be able to grab that bar. Now, if you're in a normal gym, a lot of gyms don't have this. So if you've got just a bench and you're set up at a squat rack, you know, like one of these portable benches, and you set it up on a squat rack like here, you're on the floor. You're on the floor, right? And it's a very bad position because you're further down and your crotch is closer to your training partner's face, which is very unfortunate, or fortunate, depends on how you look at it. However, in competition, we don't want any of that. So I'm going to show you comp style. So we have a rack that you may not have access to. If you don't, my apologies. Standing on the rack, something you have to understand is either way, yeah, it's a nicer position because I'm further away, but still, look at where the bench's face is. That's unpleasant or pleasant, depends how you look at it. Either way, minimize that time. So when this bench presser is getting set up, if you're a good spotter, good training partner, get out of the way. Get your crutch out of their face so they can set up. Then what you want to do is allow them to position their body, wait for them to do that. And what I like to do for the unrack is I'll communicate with the lifter. So that this is where the spotter, the training partners need to be able to communicate with each other. One thing that I don't like is when people say 3, 2, 1 up. So when the bencher is saying 3, 2, 1 up, or 1, 2, whatever you want to say, ready, set, go, you're exhaling. Exhale, 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 therefore out of position. I want you inhaled. That's the right position. So therefore, the way that I communicate with the lifter, and I recommend that you communicate with your spotter, is to unrack the weight the moment that the bencher, the presser, the lifter, has fully inhaled. So what I like to do is I get set up and I'll go, the moment I close my mouth because I've inhaled maximally, that's my signal to the spotter that it's time to unrack. Now let's have a look at how to unrack. What a lot of people try and do, this is another error, is people try and be polite and they do this awkward crutch out thing and they poke their butt out and they lift the bar this way. That's not very strong. It's like doing a deadlift with the barbell away from your center of mass. It's weak.
when you deadlift, you want the barbell in line with your midfoot. So the same applies here. This is the strongest position. Barbell in line with the midfoot. So I've actually got some of the best unrackers in the world, and one of those is my little sister-in-law, Dinny J. She's 52 kilograms, and she has spotted me for 200 kilogram bench press fail because she knows what she's doing. And that is to keep the bar. She's a 160 kilogram deadlifter, mind you, but either way, she's quite strong. But she doesn't have to be able to lift 200 kilograms to spot 200 kilograms because, of course, I'm lifting that as well. What she needs to know how to do, or what your spotting partner, your training partner needs to know how to do, is to position themselves in the strongest position, which is thighs pretty much like almost touching the barbell. So the barbell's in line with your midfoot. Same rules for a strong deadlift. Now, this is the unrack position, which you don't want to, I've been standing here for a long time explaining that to you. Don't do that to your training partner. It's unpleasant for them, or pleasant, depends how you look at it. So what you want to do, once they're ready, get in position, barbell in line with midfoot. A very simple way of thinking about it is have your thighs touching the bar. From here, the rack height is pretty important for the lifter. What I don't want to do, like I want to take a lot of the weight off the lifter so that they can just focus on maintaining position. But in order to do that, I don't need to take them out of position. Yeah, lots of airplanes. Okay, so all I want to do is lift the weight enough. See how I'm doing it? I'm lifting it enough so it clears. Can you see that rack? Can you see the lip? Okay, all I need to do is clear that lip. All I'm doing is unracking this much, which is where you're not taking the lifter out of position. You're lifting the barbell just enough to clear the rack, but not so much that it takes the lifter out of position. Why don't we do this, Musti? Why don't we show how not to do it? Yeah, how not to do it and how to do it, okay? Well, let's go how to do it, and then let's go how not to do it. Now, Musti's gonna stand back, let me get in position without his crutch in my face. Okay, now from here, he sees that I'm in position. Now he's gonna do it the correct way. Okay, so that was very seamless. Now he's gonna do it the incorrect way. Oh, fuck. Okay, so of course that was exaggerated. And I think that I've gone through so many details of the bench press that if I give more, it's gonna be overkill, but I bet you someone is gonna write in the comments, but what about this? Anyway, what we're gonna do is I'm gonna show you how that carries over. So for the question that I had, saying, I know this applies to powerlifters and strongman and elite level, how does it apply to general population? This applies to general population. If you are a beginner, my daughter, I teach her this technique because I want her to learn how to move, and it's a great way of pressing. And the beginner can do it, an advanced can do it, everyone can do it. All the techniques that I teach applies from all levels. The difference is how much weight you lift, okay? A beginner obviously doesn't lift as heavy a weight. Now, let's have a look at how this applies to the pull pattern. So I'm going to show you a vertical pull, which I really like. So when I'm teaching someone the bench press, as I'm warming up for the bench, I'll do a set of bench press, and then I'll come and I'll do a set of lat pull downs. The reason why I like to pair it with a lat pull down, so a bench press is a horizontal push, but a lat pull down is a vertical pull plane. So why do a lot of people like to superset, they do a horizontal push with a horizontal pull. I like to pair it with a vertical pull because one of the details of shoulder blade positioning that's important in a bench press is the vertical plane of scapular positioning. So this is called scapular depression. Okay, so something that I try and look for with all of these exercises, a cue that you can consider is increase the distance between your shoulders and your ears. So what does that mean? Incorrect technique here. So this is elevating the shoulders, that's wrong technique. I want depression. Okay, so depression of the scapula. So I like to superset the bench press with the lat pull down because the lat pull down, the bottom position of the lat pull down is the exact position that I want to be in from bench press from start to finish, which is, check this out. So have a look at everything that I'm doing. It's arching my upper back, my shoulder blades are back and down. The distance between my shoulders and ears is as much as possible. So shoulders back and down, extension of the spine. That's the position that I'm in. So check it out. So from here, that's where I want you. Okay, so let's do it again. Here, hold that position. bench press, same position. Same position as the bottom position of a lat pull down. So let's have a look at everything that's happening. Let's have a look at incorrect technique with a lat pull down is rounding your upper back. So this is what a lot of people do. And that's how a lot of people incorrectly bench press, with a flat back and protracted scapulars. That's what their shoulders look like, which is out of position if your objective is to shift the heaviest load. So one of the muscles that I want to target in a lat pull down is my mid-back muscles. The only time the mid-back muscles are on is if you see the shoulder blades coming in and down. So if the shoulder blades don't move in and down, those mid-back muscles aren't working. Some of you might say, well, that's the objective. In a lat pull down, I only want to train my lats. True, you can do a pure lat-focused lat pull down, which is where I'm not focusing on pulling my shoulder blades back and down. So yes, that's correct. However, this is the one that I want to teach you in relation to the correct shoulder positioning for the bench press. From a full stretch to shoulders back and down and arch, so chest, sternum up high. Full stretch, this is the position. So if you are learning your bench press, superset a lat pull down with this position, shoulders back and down, superset back and forth, and it's gonna help give you a better understanding of how to push with the bench press. There's a lot there, bro. A lot there, bro. Isn't there? All right. Last but not least, seated cable row. The grips that I've used are irrelevant. So I've got, kind of neutralish grips here. It doesn't matter if you go pronated, neutral, supinated, or whatever. I'm not demonstrating the wrist position. I'm demonstrating what I want from the shoulders and how it all relates. So I'll teach you correct form with the seated cable row. What I always want to do with my exercises is full range of motion. Now this is natural human movement. Remember what I said with the bench press, it's not natural human movement because you're laying on a board which restricts your scapulars or your shoulder blades from moving freely. But when we are doing a row, our shoulder blades are free to move in space. Same applies with a push-up actually. A push-up allowing us to move our shoulders and perform the press action or the push pattern correctly with nothing restricting our shoulder blades from moving. So you can protract your shoulder blades when you're doing a push-up, but a bench press, you don't want to do that. Now, let's have a look at the rules here. Have a look at the impact that my thoracic spine, so my upper back position, has on my shoulder blade position. When I'm arching the whole time, look at my shoulder blades, they're back. Okay, so I'm fully locked out, but because I'm arching so hard, it's hard for me to protract my scapula. Okay, so this is where, in a seated cable row, I don't recommend you're too rigid like this. So this is what a lot of people try and do to have really good technique in a seated cable row. You're not taking your middle back muscles to their full stretch. To allow your rhomboids and trapezius to go from a full lengthened position, you need protraction of the scapula, which is paired with flexion of the thoracic spine, which means rounding of the upper back. So have a look at my upper back. I'm rounding forward to get full range of motion in the mid-back muscles and protraction of the scapula, and I'm extending to get full retraction of the scapulars and a full contraction of my mid-back muscles. Protraction is paired with flexion, retraction is paired with extension. Flexion, extension, protraction, retraction. Full stretch of mid-back muscles, full contraction of mid-back muscles. So while I'm doing this, I'm maintaining a rigid lower back. So I'm not doing this. This is legs and hips. That's kind of cheating. That's creating momentum. That's not what I want to do. I want to maintain a rigid core, but allow for thoracic flexion and extension to get full range of motion in those mid-back muscles. And if you know how to move the shoulders and thoracic spine with those three movements, comp bench, seated cable row, and a lat pull down, there's not really a single exercise in the upper body that you won't have the coordination to be able to do. So that's why in my courses, I emphasize the education on a powerlifting style bench press. If you know how to perform the powerlifting style bench press and those pull patterns, of course, you'll know how to do absolutely everything. Anyway, man, that was an in-depth discussion on the powerlifting style bench press as practiced by the best benchers in the world. And you know all of this for free. This took me decades to learn this. I want you to understand something. When people give stuff away for free, people don't listen to it because they go, oh, it's free, so it's no value. No. This is valuable, right? I should charge for this. In fact, I do with my seminars. I charge a lot of money for this. I charge a lot of money for this, and it's yours for free. Please use it. Please use it. I've taken the guesswork out of it for you. Use it. Stick to it for 10 years. Watch your bench press. You're welcome. How many sessions a week? 2 sessions a week. Hope you listen. Hope you enjoyed. And I hope you like this style of content. This is raw, behind the scenes. I would like to say unedited, but you're going to edit the boring shit out.
Not much.
Not much. This is fucking free form. Free form.
Check the Instagram as well.
Yeah, go check the Instagram. You know what we might do as well? Post the final product on Instagram here, so they can see the 10-step tutorial at the end. Anyway, all right, I'm going to eat lunch. I've been talking for a long time, just for you guys. See you guys.